Well, welcome back to the most surprising things about the birth of Jesus podcast this week. And we're on day 6, and this episode really explores one of the darkest and most sobering parts of the Nativity story, a part we rarely talk about at Christmas pageants. It's entitled The Birth That Provoked a King's Rage. Because most babies don't terrify powerful rulers, most infants don't threaten political stability. But Jesus did. And the way King Herod reacted reveals the truth still relevant for today. The arrival of Jesus brings joy to the humble and fear to those clinging to power. To understand why Jesus' birth was so threatening, we need to understand Herod the Great. Herod was a brilliant builder, responsible for palaces, fortresses, and even renovation of the Jerusalem temple. But he was also violent and paranoid. Historical records describe him as a ruler who would eliminate anyone he perceived as a threat. He had political rivals killed, members of the Sanhedrin executed, 2 of his sons murdered, even his own wife killed out of suspicion. So when Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem saying, "We're looking for the newborn king of the Jews," this was not a cute Christmas moment. This was a political earthquake. A rightful king, one announced by a star. Herod felt that his entire power structure was shaking. Matthew's Gospel says something fascinating. When Herod heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Why would all Jerusalem be troubled? Because they knew that Herod was capable of. If he felt threatened, they knew violence would follow. And the birth of Jesus, a moment of divine joy, cast a shadow of dread over the city. Isn't that surprising? The Messiah comes, and instead of celebration, the capital trembles. This is part of the nativity we often skip over. The birth of Jesus is good news, but it disrupts systems built on fear, power, and control. Herod calls the Magi into a secret meeting. He asks them when the star appeared. He learns the child is in Bethlehem, and then he pretends to be a worshipper. Go and search carefully for the child, and when you find him, tell me so that I too may go and worship. But Herod never had worship in mind. He had murder in mind. This is spiritual warfare unfolding in real time. The darkness trying to extinguish the light. But God intervenes. The Magi are warned in a dream not to return to Herod. They go home in a different way. And when Herod realizes that the Magi have outwitted him, his rage erupts. And this is the part of the story we rarely speak about, but it's important. Herod orders the killing of all boys in Jerusalem, in Bethlehem, 2 years old and under. The joy of Christmas is set against the backdrop of deep tragedy. This tells us something crucial. The arrival of Jesus challenged the powers of the darkness from the very beginning. Even as a child, his presence shook the foundation of evil systems. This isn't a sentimental story, it's a revolutionary one. Jesus came to bring peace, but his peace confronts all that is unjust, violent, and oppressive. As Herod's soldiers move through Bethlehem, God speaks to Joseph again in a dream. Get up, take your child and his mother, and flee to Egypt. And so the Holy Family becomes a refugee family, escaping violence under the cover of night, crossing borders into the land that once enslaved their ancestors. This part of the story shows us that Jesus knows what it means to flee danger. He knows displacement, vulnerability, and uncertainty. And from his earliest days, he entered into the suffering of humanity. And in the middle of all political chaos and human cruelty, God preserves his Son. Nothing Not a paranoid king, not violence, not darkness could stop the mission of Christ. And this dramatic, painful chapter of the Nativity reveals powerful truths. The kingdom of God threatens any kingdom built on fear. Herod's rage in the world's rejection of a different kind of king, a king of peace, justice and compassion. The angels sing, but Herod schemes, and joy and grief coexist. Before he ever teaches, heals or preaches, he knows the experience of being hunted and displaced. The Nativity is far more complex and far more human than we often imagine. And the birth of Jesus provoked a king's rage, because Jesus is not a passive king. He is the king whose very presence confronts darkness. And the surprising truth is this: the same child who terrified Herod brings comfort, hope and peace to those who seek him. So thank you for joining me on day 6. Tomorrow, in our final episode, we'll be exploring one of more surprising twists: the Messiah who begins his life as a refugee, and what that reveals about the heart of God. So until then, may you find courage in the face of darkness and hope in the one who came to overcome it.